Joining us from the House of Commons is Stephen Kinnock, Labour MP for Aberavon, the constituency home of Tata Steel Complex and many of its workers. Stephen Kinnock, do you actually have hard evidence of specific misperformance by financial advisors?
So my understanding, John, is that there have been some cases which are now going through an appeal process that's being managed by the trustees. I think the problem is more, rather than sort of that specific issue, it's more just the number of advisors that have come in like vultures, preying on vulnerable people and taking their commission and their fees and not always giving the best possible advice. So it's not as if there's a smoking gun always in terms of actual deliberately misleading advice, but it's just not often been the best advice that people could get. And what we need to see is the Financial Conduct Authority having the teeth to really crack down on these unscrupulous advisors. I'm very pleased that tomorrow some of these advisors will be being hauled before the Select Committee for Department of Work and Pensions, and also I'll be going to a meeting in Port Talbot with the FCA on Thursday, and I've got some very searching questions to be asking.
But this looks as if there might be a systemic problem right across the industry when it comes to what happens when there are big takeovers like this. I mean, are there not regulations to ensure that these workers who, God knows, cannot really know much about the pensions world are protected?
Well, you're absolutely right. This is a complex issue, and I think some people have been overwhelmed by the information. The trustees and the company have had a helpline, they've had road shows, they've had a number of conversations, but the information is confusing. And as I think your report said, trust is at quite a low level in some cases between the workforce and the employer. So, that all makes quite a toxic mixture. I've written to the Chief Executive of the FCA. I'm pleased to say I'll be having a meeting with him early next week. I do think this could be the tip of the iceberg, and I think the government needs to look very hard at this issue more broadly. The FCA is asking to have more power to regulate this sector more effectively. I think we need to look at that, and indeed this may be opening a Pandora's box of issues, not just in the steel sector. Putting
it crudely, is this a consequence of deregulation?
Well, yes. I mean, I think the point of the FCA and of any regulator is it's only as good as the powers it has of enforcement. And certainly the FCA has said they don't feel that they have enough power to really go after companies that they suspect are not properly qualified and are really ripping people off. So I think deregulation clearly does not work at all if you don't create with it a regulator that has real teeth, and I think we can see that right across the board, the energy sector, the communication sector, whatever you might look at.
Well, is there any chance that those workers who claim they have lost money in all this will get it back?
Well, I think those appeals that are being reviewed by the company and the trustees are going to be very important. I think there's going to be a huge amount of focus on scrutiny on those. And certainly, if they find that there's been malpractice and that people are being ripped off, then the consequences of that should be severe.
Stephen Kinnock, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.